at the top, we're going to have 2 heavyweight fights. Now, what's been speculated over the last week or so, and Warren insists nothing's been signed and sealed yet, but has been Deontay Wilder against Zhilei Zhang. Obviously, Zhilei Zhang is with Queensbury. Deontay Wilder, as far as we're aware, a free agent currently. And the other one was Daniel Dubois, who we saw most recently getting past Jarrell Miller in impressive fashion. He's another Queensbury fighter, going up possibly against the IBF #1 contender and perhaps championship opportunity in waiting for the winner, Filip Hrgovic, who again is not with Matchroom. So, as Frank Warren explained, you can only have one wild card, and that's for one of the 2 heavyweight fights. Eddie Hearn will presumably pick one of those 2 if these fights go ahead. Would he have to sign the other one? I guess he would to a Matchroom contract. However short term that might be with all this transfer window stuff going on. But Warren was just he said it kind of undermines the whole concept if, Hearn fills his stable with a bunch of ringers, a bunch of bounty hunters only in it for that one night. Do you know what I mean? So hired guns, if you like. So we'll have to wait and see how that all pans out. But if they are the 2 heavyweight fights, Eamon, what do you make of those 2?
Yeah, look, Dubois versus Hrgovic, start off with that one. Dubois really confident right now for the back of the win over Jarrell Miller. It depends who you speak to as to where I kind of lie on this, because I had a couple of people kind of say that with Dubois' confidence skyrocketed, as it were, against Jarrell Miller, and the doubts that maybe he had about when the going gets tough, will he get going? He kind of proved that to some degree against Miller, because he was really on the back foot parts of that fight. It looked like he was going to gas until he found his second win to really sail him through to the victory at the end. And some people say that, look, now's the time. Once you're up here, go for those bigger fights. And the Hrgovic, whilst he's a threat, you could probably come up through that fight, through that test. And then the other side of the coin is some people saying, when I look at Hrgovic, I see him as quite a big threat, but other trainers, the like of Kevin Barry, kind of see him as someone who's been maneuvered into a position quite well and isn't really the package that we're being delivered to and talked to about when it comes to Filip Hrgovic, who has faltered for many people in their own eyes. I saw it with my own eyes myself when he fought Zhilei Zhang on the Usyk versus Joshua 2 card. Very lucky to come away with a decision on that night, on that fight. Will he come through Daniel Dubois? Maybe that's the step that they're willing to take, the risk reward for Dubois with the mandatory position on the line there. And why would Filip Hrgovic want to sacrifice that as well too, which is a very interesting part of the equation as well, for the winner to then have another fight against Joshua to then claim the belt, as it were. Very, very, very strange point there, waiting to see what the decision is there. And moving forward with Wilder versus Zhang, look, Zhang, coming off the back of the defeat to Joe Parker, will feel aggrieved, but has a lot to answer for the second half of his performance against Joe Parker, where he didn't do all that much himself. So jumping straight in and looking to rectify and keeping his name in people's mouths and people's minds is probably what's best for Zhilei Zhang, who will probably see the opportunity of Deontay Wilder, who doesn't look to the best of his form right now, is looking for some activity himself. In prospect, 2 big bangers in Wilder and Zhang. Zhang's bang probably fizzles out after the 6th. Wilder's carries through all the way to the 12th. One man is likely to go down. We just don't want that to be a dud fight. So in prospect, it seems to be 2 really good fights. Just whether, as well, the caveat with Wilder versus Zhang too, which I'm not fully sold on either, is the idea of Deontay Wilder signing with Eddie Hearn after all those years and back and forths and discussions and negotiations between the two to get Wilder versus Joshua. Now he's happy to trust Eddie Hearn. Not to say that he can't trust Eddie Hearn, but to shake those hands and be and represent Matchroom after all that. I'm not sure what's happened there. Something must have been smoothed over behind the scenes for that to happen. But until that kind of gets formally announced and we see Wilder representing Matchroom, I'm not sold on it just yet.
Yeah, I mean, would it be holding hands or shaking hands? I'm not sure, given what it's been like in recent times. But I imagine Wilder, not just because of his name, would be the wild card in this scenario, and he would be signing his deal directly with Turki Al Sheikh to fight Zhilei Zhang. But maybe the one who signs with Matchroom for however short term a deal it is would be Hrgovic, who's obviously worked with them before. I'm not sure. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I think DB Cooper mentioned in the chat, I won't read the full chat, but mentioned the existence of a captain for each team, and they get double points if they win their fight. And he was saying about, it looks like Frank's going to choose Dubois. I wouldn't do that. I probably wouldn't either if the projected card lines up as we kind of expect it to. I think Dubois against Hrgovic is kind of a 55-45 fight in favour of Hrgovic. It's not, I'm not picking just yet who's going to win, but I certainly wouldn't make him my captain. You do fantasy football, you have your triple captain, don't you? And you always pick your best striker who's playing at home against the weakest opposition. So, Erling Haaland's at home against Luton or Burnley, probably a better example this year. That's who you go as your triple captain. You want someone who's got the odds massively in their favour if, you're getting double points for it. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't pick Dubois in this scenario if it is Hrgovic he's fighting. But yeah, it's hard for Eddie Hearn on the heavyweight side because if he doesn't, sign up Hrgovic and use Wilder as a wild card, who does he have in the heavyweight division that's in and around world level except for Joshua? And we don't expect Joshua to be part of this card despite his kind of low-key trolling online. He's not going to stick Johnny Fisher in with a, Zhilei Zhang, is he, or a Daniel Dubois at this stage. So who else is there? It's a tough one unless he kind of re-signs Dillian Whyte. Perhaps that could be done. It's an interesting way of Dillian Whyte getting right back in the mix. But I don't think those two fights that have been talked about would have been whoever leaked it, whoever's the mole. I don't think it matters in the fact that people wouldn't be talking about it from nowhere. There's no smoke without fire. And I imagine they will be the two heavyweight fights. How we get there is a different matter. And as I said, I would make Hrgovic a slight favourite against Dubois. I would make Zhang probably more than a slight favourite against Deontay Wilder. I think given their last performances, Zhang wasn't brilliant against Joseph Parker, but he still scored 2 knockdowns. He still remained a threat. And before that, he had a really couple of great back-to-back performances against Joe Joyce. And they're still fresh in the memory, whereas Wilder's been largely inactive in recent times. And the only fight we've seen him in the last couple of years was a pretty clear defeat, no matter what he says and the excuses we've heard since. It was a pretty clear defeat to Joseph Parker, who was all over him. He's just too fast, too active for someone who'd been out the ring for a long time and never has the greatest work rate even before that. And I think that's where this is an appealing fight perhaps for Zhang, because he's got a good chin, or as good as anyone in the heavyweight division. So, he might be able to stand up to Wilder's shots. But more importantly than that, Zhang's Achilles heel, as you pointed out, Eamon, is his lack of conditioning, stamina, falling off in the second half of fights. Wilder's not someone who's going to be constantly pressing him, darting around him, making him work in the same way Joseph Parker was. Wilder's going to be a threat for as long as he's on his feet because he's a massive puncher, but he's not a massive workhorse. So, Zhang should be able to pace himself a bit better than he has in the, the fallible moments we've seen him in against Hrgovic, Jerry Forrest, and now more recently Joseph Parker. So then you've got to look at beyond the big punch because they're both big bangers. Who's gonna more likely to win the fight if it goes into the later rounds or goes the distance? Now, there are question marks, as we've said, about Zhang's stamina, but he is probably the better. Well, I'll say always definitely the better technical fighter. Might have hand speed's probably similar, footwork, pretty slow on Zhang's part, but it does have good technical footwork. So I'd probably make Zhang a relatively healthy favourite, particularly given recent form.